Mind the gap, the man's jaw unhinged with a wet crack. Skin tore down his neck as something inside pushed upward, blooming like rot-swollen fruit splitting its skin. Elliot stumbled back against the carriage wall, hands scrabbling for purchase on the slick metal. The air stank, chemical and coppery, like burnt blood and bile. Screams tore through the train as people surged away, trampling seats, falling over each other. The man, Thomas, his ID had said, lurched forward, hands clawed, eyes milk-white and leaking. A woman tried to help him. He bit through her throat in one twitching motion. Blood sprayed across the window. It steamed against the glass. Elliot turned and ran, slipping over a fallen briefcase, the scream of metal on metal echoing as the train braked hard. Claire was already at the door, prizing it open with a fire extinguisher. Behind them, the thing that had been Thomas howled, wet and broken and not human. Elliot vaulted the gap between carriages, heart hammering, lungs burning. Behind him, screams. Ahead, darkness. 9 hours earlier, Elliot Reed was being bollocked about a spreadsheet. He stood in the glass box that passed for a meeting room, arms folded, trying not to let his expression slip into open disdain. Martin Clark, head of department and petty tyrant, was jabbing a finger at the screen like it had personally insulted him. "This," Martin said, tapping the screen where a red cell blinked innocently, "is unacceptable. You've listed the Q2 revenue from the Haversham account as 13.7K. It's 13.2K. That's a 500-pound discrepancy. Do you understand what that means, Elliot?" Elliot, whose morning had already included a soaked trouser leg from a passing van and a coffee spill down his shirt cuff, nodded slowly. "Yes, Martin. I imagine it means Haversham's yacht will be slightly less gold-plated this quarter." Martin didn't laugh. He never did. Graham Peterson, lurking at the far end of the room with his arms crossed and a smirk twitching at his lips, did. Martin turned on him. "Do you find this funny, Graham?" Graham spread his hands. No, just appreciating Elliot's unique approach to client care." Elliot exhaled through his nose and focused on the window. Outside, the city blurred under low gray skies. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed like insects. Martin resumed his sermon, pacing a tight loop like a shark in a paddling pool. "This isn't the first time, Elliot. Your attention to detail has been raised in 3 separate appraisals. We can't afford this level of sloppiness, not now, not with restructuring on the horizon." There it was, the not-so-veiled threat. Elliot nodded again. Understood. He didn't care, not really. He'd stopped caring around the 2nd month of working at Mackenzie & Company, sometime after realizing that dynamic corporate culture meant PowerPoint hellscapes and colleagues who treated minor errors like war crimes. Martin finally relented. "Fix it. Today. And send me the revised sheets before 5. Elliot left without another word. Graham trailed after him, catching up by the lift. "Bit harsh, that," Graham said, voice light with mock sympathy. "I mean, 500 quid, practically embezzlement." Elliot pressed the down button. "You know, if you spent less time gloating and more time working, you might actually get promoted." "Oh, I have no interest in promotion," Graham said cheerfully. "I enjoy watching other people struggle far too much." The lift pinged. Elliot stepped inside alone. The rest of the day unspooled with the slow, grinding inevitability of a Monday. Emails multiplied. The aircon coughed stale air. At one point, someone microwaved fish. By 5:30, Elliot had redone the spreadsheet, triple-checked the figures, and sent it with a terse email titled, "As requested." He packed up slowly. The office emptied around him, heels clicking, chairs scraping, the soft thud of laptop bags slung over shoulders. Graham waved on his way out. "Chin up, Reed. Only another 40 years till retirement." Elliot offered him a single-finger salute. Outside, the city was wet. Not raining exactly, just that persistent misty damp that soaked you without ever quite becoming proper weather. He buttoned his coat, flipped his collar, and joined the tide of commuters heading for the station. The concourse was its usual chaos. Crowds eddying around ticket machines, announcements warbling overhead, the scent of hot pastry and wet wool hanging thick in the air. He passed a busker singing something mournful on a cracked guitar, dodged a man arguing with a vending machine, and slipped through the ticket barrier with a beep. Platform 8 was already busy, the 1812 service to Wellingford via St. Albans and Harrogate. He checked the board. On time. Miraculous. The train hadn't arrived yet, so he joined the loose line of people standing where the doors would be. Commuter instinct honed over years. Some had headphones in, some scrolled their phones. One woman ate a sandwich with the resigned efficiency of someone who'd given up caring about dignity after 5 p.m. Elliot stared at the rails. His own reflection ghosted faintly in the shiny metal. Just another day, another loop in the hamster wheel. He was about to fish his phone out when a man staggered into view from the next platform over. He was tall, in a gray suit that hung oddly on his frame, too loose at the shoulders, too tight at the elbows. His skin was pale, almost waxy, and he moved like he was drunk or sleepwalking. Elliot's first instinct was to look away. London taught you not to get involved. But something about the man held his gaze. There was a lanyard swinging from the man's neck, a white badge with a red stripe. Elliot couldn't read the name, but the logo caught his eye, a stylized double helix in the words Stoller Institute beneath it. The man reached the edge of the platform, paused, then turned jerkily and shuffled along, veering slightly too close to the yellow line. People glanced up. No one moved to help. A soft voice beside Elliot said, "He doesn't look well." He turned. A woman stood next to him, brown hair tucked into a wool cap, gray coat, eyes sharp behind rectangular glasses. She wasn't talking to him specifically, just observing. He nodded anyway. "No," he said, "he really doesn't." The train arrived with a squeal of brakes and a rush of displaced air. People shifted forward. Elliot glanced back toward the man in the gray suit, but he was gone, vanished into the crowd or onto another carriage. He boarded quickly and managed to snag a window seat, tucking himself in as the carriage filled. The usual suspects, suits, students, tired parents. The woman in the cap sat 2 rows ahead. She looked out the window, unreadable. The train pulled away. The city blurred past. Elliot closed his eyes and leaned his head against the cold glass. Another day down. Another ride through the gap. The first sign was the sound. Not a groan exactly, more like a wet rattle, deep and gurgling, like someone trying to clear a throat full of water. It came from somewhere near the back of the carriage. A few heads turned. Most didn't. Elliot opened his eyes. The train was between stations now, the windows reflecting the faint interior glow and the black of the tunnel beyond. He looked around. A man 3 seats back was shifting uncomfortably, glancing across the aisle. There it was again. The rattle. Closer this time. Someone said, "Mate, you all right?" Loud enough to carry. No answer. Elliot craned his neck. A figure near the gangway door was slumped against the side wall, knees bent awkwardly, head tilted forward so the chin nearly touched his chest. The suit was familiar. Gray, ill-fitting. The lanyard was still there, swinging slightly. The woman in the cap, Claire, though Elliot didn't know her name yet, stood up. She moved with a kind of decisiveness that made people part without really thinking. She stepped toward the man. "Sir?" she asked, crouching slightly. "Can you hear me?" No response. The carriage had quieted now. Phones lowered. Conversation stopped. Claire reached out, carefully, and touched the man's shoulder. He slid sideways, not fell. Slid. Like his joints weren't quite right. He crumpled bonelessly to the floor, the side of his face hitting the rubber mat with a soft, wet smack. Someone gasped. A middle-aged man near the door stood, hesitated, sat again. Claire knelt fully now, checking for a pulse. She put 2 fingers to the neck, then drew them back sharply. Elliot stood. She looked up, caught his eye, and said, "Call 999. He was already reaching for his phone. "Emergency. Which service?" "Ambulance. We're on a train, the 1812 from Liverpool Street to Norwich. A man's collapsed. He's not breathing. I think—" "Is he conscious?" No, he's not moving. Someone's checked. There's no pulse." "Is the train in motion?" "Yes." "Which carriage are you in?" Elliot looked around, spotted the little placard above the door. Carriage D. Carriage D. Middle of the train, I think." "Remain calm. You said no pulse?" "Yeah, and he looks bad. Skin's all gray. He was walking earlier. Looked out of it." A pause, not long, but enough to notice. "Please stay on the line. I'm connecting you to Public Health Liaison." "What? Wait. Public Health?" A different voice came on, female, clipped. "Mr. Elliot Reed. Mr. Reed, I need you to listen carefully. Do not approach the individual. Ensure no one touches him. Has anyone been in direct contact?" Elliot glanced toward Claire. She'd stood up now, backing away from the body. "Yes. 1 person." She checked him. Pulse. "Understood. Are there any visible wounds? Bleeding?" I don't think so, but he's just lying there." "Mr. Reed, I need you to instruct everyone in Carriage D to move to the adjoining carriage immediately. Do not panic them. Say there's a precautionary fault with the air conditioning. Do not mention illness. Do not touch the man or allow anyone else to. Can you do that?" Yeah, I think so." "Do it now. We're alerting the driver. The train will make an unscheduled stop." The line went dead. Elliot lowered the phone. His heart was hammering in his chest. He stepped into the aisle. "Excuse me, everyone, sorry. Could I have your attention?" People looked up. A few frowned. One man kept his headphones in. "There's been a fault reported in this carriage. Air system, apparently. They want us to move to the next one. Just a precaution." A moment of stillness. Then someone stood. Then another. Murmured reassurances. Probably nothing. Bloody hell. Always something. Elliot moved toward the gangway door. Claire was already there, holding it open, ushering people through. "Quickly, please," she said, voice calm but firm. "Let's keep it moving." The last few passengers filtered through. Elliot took one final glance at the man on the floor. He hadn't moved. Claire reached for the handle to shut the door. Then the man inhaled. It was sudden, loud. A sucking, shuddering breath that sounded like it ripped through ruined lungs. Claire froze. Elliot's breath caught. The man's head jerked up. His eyes were black. Not just the pupils, the whole sclera drowned in inky darkness. His skin had gone from gray to something worse, a mottled purple, stretched tight over his cheekbones, lips cracked and glistening. He opened his mouth. The sound that came out wasn't speech. It was a gurgling screech, wet and high, like metal tearing underwater. Claire slammed the door shut. The creature launched forward. It hit the glass with a sickening thud, leaving a smear of something dark and thick. Its hands scrabbled against the door, fingers clawing at the edges, smearing the window with streaks of black-red sludge. "Go!" Claire shouted, pushing Elliot ahead of her. They ran through the next carriage, Carriage C, startling the passengers who just settled. "Keep moving!" Elliot yelled. "Back another carriage!" People started to rise, confused, frightened. Behind them, the door rattled. Then a bang. Then another. It was trying to break through. A woman screamed. The banging intensified. Rhythmic, furious. Claire turned to Elliot. "We need to lock the gangway. Is there a latch?" He looked. A small lever near the top. He reached up, yanked it down. A click. The banging stopped, for a second. Then the door burst inward. The latch held, but the window didn't. It shattered, spraying glass into the aisle. A hand reached through, blackened, clawed, fingernails cracked and bleeding. Claire grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and slammed it against the hand. It recoiled. Another screech. The passengers screamed. Someone shouted, "What the hell is that?" "No time," Elliot said. Keep going." They herded people into carriage B. This time there was panic. People pushing, stumbling. A suitcase toppled. A child cried. The creature was at the door now, one arm fully through, shoulder grinding against the jagged edge. Elliot saw it up close. The skin was sloughing away in places. The shoulder joint bulged unnaturally, as though the bones had shifted beneath. The smell hit him like a punch. Sweet, rotting meat, and something chemical, acidic. Claire hit it again with the extinguisher. It howled. The doorframe groaned. "We can't stop it," she said. "Not like this." "Then we need to get off this train." The driver's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to a technical issue, we'll be making an emergency stop. Please remain calm and await further instructions." The train began to slow, not quickly enough. Elliot turned to Claire. "What the hell is that thing?" "I don't know, but it's not the only problem." She nodded toward the far end of the carriage. Through the glass, two figures in black tactical gear had appeared, moving fast, heads covered with helmets and visors. One held a rifle, the other a case. "Who are they?" Elliot asked. "They're not with the railway." The train jolted. The brakes screeched. They were slowing faster now. The creature shrieked again. This time it sounded closer. Elliot turned. The door to carriage C was bowing inward. The metal hinges screamed. Then it gave way. The thing threw itself through the gap, onto a man in a suit who didn't move quickly enough. The man went down hard, screaming. Blood sprayed upward in a fine mist. Elliot grabbed Claire's arm. "We have to move." They pushed through into carriage B, dragging people along. The rest followed, some running, some frozen in place until shoved. Behind them, chaos. The creature had someone else now, a woman. It latched onto her neck, and her scream was cut short as blood poured down her front. Someone tried to fight it, hit it with a laptop bag. Useless. The thing turned, grabbed the attacker by the face, and slammed his head into the wall. Skull met metal. The crunch was sickening. The train screeched again, slowing. They reached the vestibule between carriage B and A, locked. Elliot pounded on the door. A conductor on the other side opened it, wide-eyed. "What's going on back there?" "No time," Claire said, pushing past him. "Get the door open. We need to evacuate." "We're still moving." "Then you'd better stop us," Elliot snapped. The conductor hesitated, then turned and ran toward the front. The train ground to a halt. Somewhere in open country, no platform, no lights, just grass and tracks and the distant silhouette of trees. The doors hissed open. Elliot jumped down first. The ground was uneven, gravel and grass. Claire helped an older woman out behind him. Others followed. Behind them, more screams. The creature was coming. Elliot looked back. It burst into carriage B, blood streaked its face. Its shirt was in tatters, skin beneath dark and pulsing with something that moved. It hissed as it spotted them, crouched low like an animal. Then it leapt. Claire screamed, "Run!" They fled into the night. Behind them, the creature hit the ground running. Break and break, Elliot's foot twisted on the gravel as he stumbled forward, catching himself just before he hit the ground. Claire was already ahead, moving with terrifying speed, her silhouette darting past the buckled fence that bordered the embankment. Behind them, the creature shrieked again, closer now, too close. "Down the slope!" Claire shouted, barely glancing back. Elliot followed, half sliding down the embankment, the ballast crunching underfoot. The air was thick with the smell of oil, rust, and something fouler, sweet and metallic, the stink of blood and rot. He didn't look back. He couldn't. A man in a Navy suit tried to vault the fence just ahead of them. He tripped, hit the ground hard, groaned, but kept moving. Others were scattering, vanishing into the darkness. The train stretched behind them like a metal carcass, its interior lights flickering, illuminating glimpses of carnage through the windows. They reached the bottom of the slope and hit the track bed. Elliot's lungs were already burning, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Claire was next to him again, grabbing his sleeve. "Service tunnel," she said, pointing to the right. "There." He saw it. A low concrete opening set back from the rails, half choked with weeds and rust-streaked signage. They sprinted for it, boots slapping the gravel, the sound of pursuit behind them raw and wet. Something smashed against metal, another scream, abruptly silenced. Elliot ducked into the tunnel first. It was barely tall enough to stand. The air inside was stale, heavy with damp and mildew. Claire followed, her torch already on, a narrow white beam slicing through the dark. She turned, aimed it back down the passage. Nothing yet. But the shrieking was closer now, echoing off the tunnel walls in unnatural harmonics. It didn't sound human. Not anymore. They ran. The tunnel curved slightly, then split. Left, a set of metal stairs leading up to what looked like a sealed door. Right. The passage sloped down, deeper into the dark. Claire didn't hesitate. "Down. Keep going." Elliot followed, heart hammering. His shirt clung to his back with sweat, and his legs felt like lead. Behind them, the creature's snarls reverberated closer. It was in the tunnel now. That much was clear. "Faster!" Claire snapped. Elliot pushed himself, lungs screaming, feet slipping on the damp floor. The tunnel widened slightly ahead, revealing another door, this one slightly ajar, hanging on its hinges. Claire kicked it fully open, and they burst into a larger chamber, a maintenance junction filled with rusted cabinets and a dead fluorescent strip light that flickered as they passed. Claire scanned the walls. There. Service hatch. She climbed a short ladder, shoved at the hatch. It groaned, stuck. Elliot scrambled up beside her and added his weight. Together they heaved, and it gave, swinging open with a screech. Cool night air rushed in. "Go," Claire said, pushing him through. He tumbled out into wet grass, rolling once before scrambling to his feet. The field was overgrown, waist-high with weeds and brambles. The sky above was clouded, moonlight barely filtering through. Claire landed beside him with a grunt. "Move!" They plunged into the field. Thorns tore at Elliot's trousers, snagged his sleeves. His breath was ragged, his thighs screaming with each step. Behind them, the hatch clanged open again. Then came a sound that froze him. Not the creature. An engine. A dark van, almost silent, rolled into view on a narrow service road at the far end of the field. Its headlights were off, but its shape was unmistakable. Matte black, boxy, reinforced. The kind of vehicle you didn't want to see in a place like this. Claire grabbed his arm. "Down!" They dropped into the grass. The van stopped. Its side door hissed open. Figures emerged. Black fatigues, masks, rifles with mounted lights. No insignia. Stoller. One of them raised a hand, gestured toward the field. A beam of light swept across the grass, passing just feet from where Elliot lay pressed into the earth. He could smell damp soil, old diesel, and the stink of his own sweat. Claire's hand was still on his arm, tight. Then a shriek from behind. The creature had reached the hatch. The operatives turned as one. Two raised their weapons. A third shouted something Elliot couldn't make out. The creature exploded from the hatch mouth like a missile, hitting the first operative before the others could react. Its claws tore into the man's chest, shredding fabric and flesh. Blood sprayed in an arc across the van. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit the field in stuttering bursts, bright, white, chaotic. The creature twisted, moved impossibly fast. One of the operatives was screaming. Another was on the ground, his leg bent the wrong way. Claire yanked Elliot up. Now, while they're distracted. They ran. Not back toward the train. Not toward the road. Into the woods. The edge of the field was a tangle of brambles and nettles. Claire didn't hesitate. She pushed through, arms raised, swearing softly as thorns tore at her sleeves. Elliot followed, wincing as something sharp raked across his cheek. Then they were in the trees. Branches clawed at them from all sides. The darkness was total. No path, no light. Just the beam from Claire's phone jittering wildly as she ran. Elliot stumbled over a root, slammed into a tree, caught himself. "Keep going," Claire called. Behind them, the gunfire faltered, then stopped. A scream garbled through a radio, then silence. Not peace, just a waiting kind of quiet. Like the woods were holding their breath. They didn't stop. Every step was agony. Elliot's legs were lead, his breath rasping in his throat. His heart felt like it would tear itself apart. The ground was uneven, slick with moss and mud. More than once he nearly fell. Then a light ahead, a break in the trees. Claire reached it first, burst through. Elliot followed, and stumbled into another field. Smaller. No vehicles this time. Just an old barn leaning under its own weight, half swallowed by the woods. Claire pointed. There! They sprinted for it, feet pounding across the wet grass. The barn door was open, just a crack. Claire shoved it wider, ducked inside. Elliot followed and slammed it shut behind them, bracing it with a rusted shovel from a nearby rack. Darkness swallowed them. Elliot leaned against the door, gasping. His whole body ached. His ears rang with the echo of gunfire, screams, and the creature's shriek. Claire's torch flicked on again. She scanned the interior. Dusty hay, old tools, broken timber. A ladder led up to a loft space. "This won't hold," she said. "Up." Elliot didn't argue. He climbed the rickety ladder, creaking under his weight. Claire followed, pulling it up behind her once they reached the top. They crouched in the loft, surrounded by bales of dry, mold-speckled hay. Below them, the barn was silent. Then outside, movement. Boots crunching grass. A voice, low and clipped. "Sweep the building." Claire mouthed a swear. A beam of light passed through a crack in the wall. Someone tried the door. It didn't budge. Then a radio crackled. "Negative. Tracks go past it, continuing east." Footsteps retreated. Silence. Claire didn't move. Neither did Elliot. His whole body trembled with exhaustion and adrenaline. Minutes passed, maybe more. Then another sound. Not boots, not human. A wet dragging, like meat across concrete. A rasping breath. A thump against the barn wall. A sniffing sound. Elliot pressed his back into the hay. Claire's hand found his, squeezed tight. The thing moved around the outside slowly, deliberately, then quiet. It was either gone or waiting. Claire leaned close, whispered, "If it gets in, we run, no matter what." Elliot nodded. He didn't trust his voice. Below, the wind creaked the barn's roof. A loose shutter banged once, then again. And somewhere in the dark, the creature waited. Through the trees, the minutes dragged out like wire pulled taut. Every creak of the timber, every distant rustle, stretched them thinner. Elliot lay still in the hay, cheek pressed against the scratchy stems, breath shallow. Claire's hand remained on his, unmoving now but firm. Outside, nothing. No bird song, no wind, just stillness. Then below them, the latch on the barn door jiggled. A soft scrape, like fingers or claws testing the edge. Elliot tensed. His pulse thumped behind his eyes. Claire shifted her weight slightly, just enough to grip the handle of the rusted sickle she'd grabbed on the way up. It looked laughably inadequate against the thing outside. But it was something. A pause, then a thud. Low, heavy. The door groaned in its frame. Another thud, more force this time. Then with a hollow crack, the shovel wedged against it snapped. The door burst inward. Elliot flinched. Claire leaned forward, peering through a gap in the floorboards. Her breath caught. Something shambled in. Its steps were uneven, wet. A dragging sound followed each footfall, as if it hauled something behind it or part of itself. A shape passed beneath them, barely visible in the dust-mottled gloom. It was taller than a man, but hunched, its shoulders uneven. One arm hung limp, the other twitched with jerky, spasmodic movements. Elliot clamped a hand over his mouth. The thing stopped below them, sniffed, a low, wet rasping that ended in a hacking, rattling cough. Claire mouthed, "Don't move." It shuffled forward. A beam of pale moonlight from a broken slat fell across its shoulder. Gray, patchy skin stretched over bone, blackened veins like cracks in ice. What remained of a shirt clung to it in tatters. A Stoller Institute ID badge dangled from the collar. Elliot could just make out the name. Dr. Collier. It wasn't Miller this time. Claire's eyes met his. Another one. The creature tilted its head, sniffed the air again, then slowly it turned in a circle. Searching. Its feet squelched on the damp straw. Then it stopped, beneath them. Elliot held his breath until his lungs burned. The thing suddenly shrieked, an awful, wet, gurgling wail that echoed through the barn like a drowning man screaming through blood. It charged the back wall, slamming into it hard enough to shake dust from the rafters. Again it shrieked, clawing at the timber, tearing at the boards, trying to get out. Not in. Claire exhaled, puzzled. The thing wanted to leave. After a minute more of furious scratching, it stumbled back, gave one last snarl, and limped out the broken door, dragging its ruined leg behind it. Elliot sagged, chest heaving. Claire waited a beat, then whispered, "It wasn't hunting us." Elliot blinked at her. Then what? Something else. Maybe a signal. It was reacting to something. They sat in silence, the question hanging between them. Eventually, Claire shifted, wincing. She clutched her side. Elliot moved closer. "Let me see." She hesitated, then nodded, lifting her shirt just enough. A gash ran from her ribs down to her hip, shallow in places, deeper in others. The blood had slowed, but the wound was filthy. Elliot rummaged in his bag. A bottle of water, a crumpled t-shirt, half a pack of plasters. Useless, really, but better than nothing. Claire looked away as he poured water over the wound, washing out dirt and congealed blood. She bit her lip but didn't cry out. He tore the t-shirt into strips and pressed them against the gash, binding them with the remains of his tie. "Stylish," she said through gritted teeth. "Very Savile Row," he muttered. "Next season's look, corporate triage." She smiled barely. Then her expression hardened. "You saw the badge?" He nodded. Another Institute staffer. That's 2 now. 3, Elliot said. I saw one on the tracks. Face was gone, but the lanyard was the same. Claire exhaled. They're all from Stoller. Elliot leaned back against the hay, staring up at the rafters. Which means this isn't some random outbreak. No, she said. It started with them. And now they're cleaning it up. Containment, Claire said. You saw the team. They weren't trying to help, they were sweeping. Elliot swallowed. They're not police, not military. No. Private response unit. Probably subcontracted. That's why no one's called in a proper alert. No sirens, no ambulances. Just silence. He let that settle. The silence outside now felt orchestrated, manufactured. They'll cover it, he said. Say it was a chemical leak, a gas explosion. Something. Claire nodded. They'll bury it. And anyone who saw it. Elliot looked at her. Why are you so sure? She didn't answer straight away. Then, I worked in crisis comms, briefly, pharma sector. You'd be amazed what people can spin when the share price is on the line. He stared at her. You're not just someone who happened to be on the train. I was heading to meet someone, a whistleblower. They sent me a packet, data, reports, photos. I didn't believe half of it. But I went anyway, just in case. Elliot felt like his brain had turned to sludge. So you knew something was going on? I suspected, she said. I didn't know it was this. Below them, the barn creaked again. Claire winced, clutching her side. She was paler now, sweating. You need antibiotics, Elliot said. She laughed weakly. Unless you've got a boots tucked in your bag, that's not happening. He looked out through a gap in the wall. The trees loomed, black and tangled, but the sky beyond them was lightening. Dawn wasn't far. We can't stay here, he said. No, she agreed. They'll double back. Elliot shifted, peering down into the barn. The thing was definitely gone. But the stench lingered, sweet rot like spoiled meat and bleach. It made his throat itch. They descended cautiously, Claire leaning on him for support. The floorboards groaned under their weight. Elliot retrieved the sickle, just in case. Outside, the clearing was empty, the grass trampled. Tracks led east. Claire pointed west. There's a service road that way. If we can find it, we can follow it out. Might even reach a village. They moved slowly, Claire limping now. Elliot kept his ears tuned for the sound of movement. Every snap of a twig, every gust of wind made him flinch. The trees swallowed them again. They walked in silence for a while, save for Claire's labored breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot. Eventually, they reached a ditch and paused. Elliot helped Claire down carefully, then scrambled after her. Rest a minute, he said. She nodded, slumping against a tree. Elliot scanned the woods. Nothing moved. But the stillness was oppressive, like the world was holding its breath. He looked at Claire again. Her eyes were glassy. You're going into shock. I'm fine, she said, voice thin. You're not. He took off his jacket, wrapped it around her shoulders. She didn't protest. We need to keep going, she said after a moment. If we stop too long... He knew she was right, but she wouldn't get far in this state. Then behind them, distant but clear, a roar. Not mechanical, not human. The same wet, rattling howl they'd heard in the barn. Elliot's blood turned to ice. Claire pushed herself upright. Go. He helped her to her feet. They climbed the far side of the ditch, pushing into thicker undergrowth. Branches tore at their clothes. Thorns scraped Elliot's arms. Claire stumbled, nearly fell. He caught her, half-carried her onward. Behind them, the roar came again, closer. They emerged into another clearing. A small shed stood at the far end, collapsed roof, door half off its hinges. Beyond it, a slope. And beyond that, a track. Tarmac, A road. Claire saw it too. There. They stumbled down the slope, slipping on loose stones. Elliot's legs burned. His lungs clawed for air. Then an engine. A low hum, then a roar. Headlights. A black SUV surged around the bend, sleek and silent. Tinted windows, no markings. Elliot dragged Claire behind a tree. The vehicle slowed, stopped. Two figures stepped out, both in black, faces obscured by visors. Operatives. They scanned the tree line. One of them raised a hand, a low whistle. Then something answered. The creature. It was with them. It was... Elliot's breath caught. The operatives turned, heading back to the SUV. The boot opened. They lifted something out. Metal, heavy, sealed. A container. Claire whispered, "They've got one contained." Elliot shook his head. "No, they're releasing it." The creature emerged from the trees behind them, limping but fast. It didn't attack the operatives. It waited. Then followed as they moved off down the road, like a hound on a leash. Elliot stared, numb. Claire whispered, "They're not just containing them, they're using them." The SUV drove off, creature in tow. Elliot sat back, heart hammering. Everything was worse than he thought. They weren't running from an outbreak. They were running from a weapon. Claire looked at him. "You get out of this, you tell someone, you make noise." "You're coming too," he said. She didn't answer. But she didn't argue. The barn loomed out of the darkness like a shipwreck, skeletal and leaning. Its roof sagged in the middle, rusted corrugated sheets clinging on by habit more than structure. One side had mostly collapsed into a tangle of rotted beams and nettle-choked rubble. The other, marginally intact, held aloft, half open to the sky, half shrouded in darkness. Claire led the way, limping but determined, her breath sharp and fast. Elliot followed, adrenaline forcing his legs to move. Every breath burned, his thighs ached. But they had to keep going, had to put something solid between them and that thing. They slipped in through a side opening, what had once been a stable door, now hanging askew. Inside, the air was thick with old straw and mold, the sour reek of rat droppings and damp. It was dark, save for moonlight slicing through the gaps in the walls. The wind whistled through them, a low, constant sigh. Claire found the ladder first. It was bolted to a support beam, half rusted and slick with condensation. She tested it with one hand, then nodded and began to climb. Elliot hesitated, then followed, every creak of the metal under his boots sending sparks of panic through his chest. The loft was a narrow space, maybe 10 feet long, with broken planks and a view down into the barn below. Some old bales of straw were piled at the far end, partially collapsed. Elliot sank down behind them, trying to calm his breathing. Claire was already scanning the space, her eyes alert. She picked up a length of wood, something that had once been part of a pitchfork handle, and tested its weight. Splintered at one end. Sharp enough. Elliot leaned back against the wall, the cold seeping through his clothes. "They released it," he said quietly. "Like a dog." Claire didn't look at him. It obeyed them. They trained it. Or conditioned it. They sat in silence. The wind rattled the tin above them. Below, something creaked. Elliot held his breath. Another creak, then a scrape. Claire raised a hand, held it still in the air. Her other hand tightened around the wood. Something moved below. The creature stepped into the barn. It moved slowly, limping, its gait uneven. The moonlight caught its skin, gray, waxy, stretched too tight over a shape that no longer fit. Its head twitched, sniffing. The jaw hung open, teeth bared. One eye was milk white, the other faintly luminous. It moved like it was listening or smelling. Its foot dragged through the straw, sending a soft rustle up into the loft. Claire didn't move. Elliot's heart pounded so loudly, he was certain it would hear. The creature paused beneath them, tilted its head, sniffed again. Then slowly, it raised its face. It saw them, or sensed them. It let out a sound, a low, wet croak, like a death rattle dragged through water. Then it moved. It found the ladder almost immediately, reached out a long, discolored hand and gripped the rungs. The metal groaned. Claire stood. Her voice was low, urgent. "We're not both getting out of this." Elliot's eyes widened. No, you're not doing this. We don't have time." She stepped back from the loft edge, scanned the space, found a rusted pulley wheel bolted into the beam above. The creature began to climb. One hand, then the next, foot scraping on metal. The ladder shuddered. Claire grabbed a coil of rope from the corner, frayed but intact. She tied one end to a beam, the other to a broken plank, then shoved it into Elliot's hands. "Out the window," she said. "Yeah, and you rappel down. The slopes behind the barn, forest beyond that. I'm not leaving you." "You will." She gripped his shoulder. "You get out, you get loud, you tell them everything." The creature's head rose into view. Claire turned and charged. She struck the creature as it reached the top, driving the splintered wood into its shoulder. It shrieked, an awful, high-pitched sound, and lashed out. She ducked the first swing, hit it again. Elliot scrambled to the window, tied the rope off. His hands shook so badly the knot slipped. He tried again. Behind him, the sound of claws on wood, Claire grunting, flesh slapping against timber. He looked back once. She met his eyes. "Go." He swung out the window. The rope burned his palms as he slid. The wall scraped his back. He landed hard, rolled, and came up gasping. Above him, a scream. Claire's voice. Then a wet, tearing sound. And silence. He stood frozen, staring up at the dark square of the loft window. No more movement, no more sound. Just wind and the creak of the barn. Then something hit the ground with a heavy, wet thud. He didn't look. He ran, down the slope, through the trees. Branches whipped his face. Roots caught his feet. He didn't stop. Couldn't. His lungs were fire. His legs jelly. He stumbled, fell, got up, kept going. Behind him, nothing. No footsteps, no pursuit. Just the memory of her scream, the sound of tearing flesh. He burst out of the tree line into a field, grass up to his waist, night air sharp in his lungs. He kept running, blind, until his legs gave out. He collapsed. The stars spun above him. He lay there, shaking, covered in mud and blood that wasn't his. The field was quiet. The world impossibly still. He wanted to scream. Instead, he sobbed. Bent double in the grass, arms around his knees. Claire was gone. He hadn't saved her. He hadn't even tried. He didn't know how long he sat there. Long enough for the sky to begin graying at the edges, for the cold to start biting through the adrenaline. Eventually, he stood. He looked back toward the trees. He couldn't see the barn anymore. He turned away and walked. Light at the edge. The road was little more than a single track slicing through fields, slick with dew and edged by broken hedgerows. His feet squelched as he walked, shoes soaked and caked with mud. Each step sent a fresh jolt through his knees. The adrenaline had long gone. What remained was a hollow ache, the kind that lived in bone and breath. Elliot kept moving. The sun was just beginning to rise, a cold, gray smear low in the sky. Not warm, not comforting, just light for the sake of it. He hadn't seen another human since the barn. Not a car, not a plane overhead, just fields and trees. The occasional lowing of distant cattle, sound that didn't belong to people. He followed the road because it was the only thing left that made sense. A line drawn by someone else years ago meant to lead somewhere. Maybe it still would. Eventually, a sign came into view, a metal rectangle, dented and rusting at the corners. Hensley 2 miles. He'd never heard of it. Didn't matter. It had houses, probably. A phone. Maybe a shop with someone behind the counter who'd look at him like he was mad until he said the words. There was a noise behind him. Elliot froze. Just a breeze pushing through long grass. He turned slow and stiff, scanning the horizon. Empty. He waited. Nothing moved. He started walking again, faster now, arms wrapped around himself. His hands still bore the rope burns. His shirt was stiff with dried blood. Claire's coat, he'd taken it without thinking, hung off his shoulders, too big, the cuff of one sleeve torn and crusted. He couldn't remember putting it on, couldn't bring himself to take it off. A low rumble rolled across the fields. He stopped again. This time it was real. Engines. He dropped to a crouch by the hedge, squinting through the gaps in the branches. A line of black vehicles moved along a road in the distance. 4x4s, matte painted, no visible markings. They moved in formation, too fast for farm work, too slow for civilians. Stoller. He pressed himself further into the hedgerow, barely breathing. The convoy disappeared behind a rise, heading away from him. Toward the barn, maybe. Or whatever was left of it. He imagined them sweeping the area, counting bodies, sanitizing, quietly, efficiently. When the sound faded, he stood again and kept walking. Every step now felt like defiance. By the time he reached the edge of Hensley, the sun had clawed its way over the horizon, casting a pale gold over rooftops. It looked normal. Terraced houses, a post box, a bus stop, a newsagent with the shutter halfway down, and an old woman in a fleece sweeping her porch. A man walked a dog past a row of parked cars. He paused at the first proper pavement. His chest tightened. No one screamed. No one ran. No blood. Just bins left out the night before and birdsong. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Claire's phone. It had survived the fall, miraculously. The screen was cracked, but it lit up. No signal, no battery left. He stared at it for a long moment, thumb hovering over the dead touchscreen. Then he slid it back into his pocket. A bus approached from the far end of the street. He stepped toward the stop, then caught sight of himself in the glass. Mud-caked, blood-stained, clothes torn. The driver wouldn't let him on, might call the police, might call someone else. He turned away and walked down a side street instead, head low. Behind a row of garages, he found a garden tap. He bent and drank straight from it, wiping his face with shaking hands. The water was freezing. It helped. A few streets on, he spotted a corner shop with its lights on. He hesitated outside. A boy inside leaned on the counter, scrolling through his phone. The radio behind him murmured something about traffic on the A14. No mention of lockdowns. No special bulletins. Nothing had broken yet. He pushed the door open. The boy looked up, startled. "Bloody hell, mate. You all right?" Elliot opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed. "I was in a car accident," he said. I need to use a phone." The boy hesitated, then ducked behind the counter and handed over a battered cordless. "You want an ambulance or something?" Elliot shook his head. Just need to call someone. Thanks." He dialed 999. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Emergency. Which service do you require?" He hesitated. Police. Connecting you now. A click. Then another voice. Police emergency. Go ahead. He stared at the wall behind the counter, a faded poster for a missing cat, a rack of scratch cards, his own reflection in the freezer glass. I want to report an incident, he said. Something happened near the old line out of Dunbridge. There's a barn, a train. People died. There's something wrong. Can you confirm your name and location? He gave his name, gave the street name from a sign he'd passed. Are you injured? No. Pause. Are you safe right now? He looked out the window. The world looked the same. Yes. Officers will be dispatched. Please remain where you are. He hung up. The boy behind the counter stared at him. You sure you're okay? Elliot nodded. Thanks. He stepped outside. He didn't wait for the police. He kept walking. He found a public library 3 streets away. It hadn't opened yet, but the Wi-Fi still reached the steps. He sat against the wall, pulled out Claire's phone again, and plugged it into a USB port on a public charging post. The light blinked red, then green. He waited. When it powered up, he opened the camera roll. Photos, notes, a few voice memos. He found one from earlier that evening, before the train. A grainy shot of a whiteboard filled with diagrams. An ID badge on a desk. A document scanned and blurred but legible in parts. Something about neural regression, pathogen latency, host compliance. He scrolled further. There was a video. He tapped it. Claire's face filled the screen, lit only by a torch. If you're watching this, I'm probably gone, she said. My name is Claire Bennett. I worked at the Stoller Institute until last year. I left when I found out what they were doing. This wasn't an accident. They knew. They tested it. I have proof. If I don't make it out, someone has to show this to the press, to Parliament, anyone who'll listen. They'll try to cover it up. But people need to know. She looked directly into the lens. Don't let them erase this. The video ended. He sat there for a long time. A siren wailed in the distance. Could have been anything. He didn't flinch. Instead, he opened the Notes app and began typing. Names, events, locations, everything he could remember. He wrote until his fingers cramped, until the sun was fully up and the town around him began to stir. Dog walkers, bin lorries, distant school bells. The normal world ticking along. He watched it through glassy eyes. Eventually, he stood. He found a charity shop and bought a clean shirt and trousers. The woman behind the till didn't ask questions. He changed in the toilet of a nearby cafe, washed his face, combed his hair with his fingers. He looked like a man coming off a long bender, not someone who'd seen a woman die to stop a monster from tearing him apart, not someone who'd watched the world crack open and bleed. He walked out and into the city proper. Somewhere he knew there'd be a newsroom with a tip line, a journalist hungry enough to chase a madman's story, a solicitor who knew how to file whistleblower protection, a copy shop where he could print Claire's files 10 times over and post them through every door in Whitehall if he had to. He didn't know how long he had, if Stoller would come looking. But he had her phone, her words, and her name. He could still hear her voice, go, echoing in the back of his skull. So he went. The streets grew busier. Cars, cyclists, a mother pushing a pram past a boarded-up betting shop, a boy in a school uniform slurping an energy drink. No one looked at him twice, which meant he still had time. He walked toward the city center, his shoulders hunched, Claire's coat still around him. A single crow cawed overhead. He didn't look up. He didn't stop. Not until he reached the first bridge over the railway line. He paused there, looking down at the tracks. Empty. Just metal and gravel and a train schedule posted on a pole nearby. The 1812 to Dunbridge. due later that day. He stared at it for a long time. Then he pulled out Claire's phone, opened the camera, and took a picture. He sent it to himself with one word in the subject line: witness. Then he kept walking, into the city, into the noise, into whatever came